He might not be texting you, he might seem ecstatic with someone else, or he might have even blocked you entirely. But what you're about to uncover can turn everything on its head. Because when a woman learns to master her emotions and reclaim her intrinsic worth, she doesn't plead for love. She cultivates it. And the most remarkable part, she doesn't even have to seek him out. He returns on his own. This isn't sorcery. It's a deep understanding of human nature. Stay here to discover what truly motivates these self-assured individuals. And if you cherish your autonomy, go ahead and tap that like button, then join our community by subscribing and ringing the bell, so you're always updated with our new content. Does that scenario strike a chord? That feeling of being discarded, as if you were an outdated piece of furniture, easily replaced. But let me assure you, this is not your ending. It's a crucial turning point, a new beginning. What you choose to do now, in this space of perceived emptiness, will determine whether you falter or flourish, whether you regress or are reborn. Many fall into the trap of pursuit, sending a barrage of messages, clinging to their phones as if they were lifelines, begging, over-explaining, and demeaning themselves. The more they engage in these behaviors, the more they diminish their own value. It's akin to trying to extinguish a raging inferno with emotional gasoline. Do you see yourself in this? Take a breath. You're not navigating this alone. But now, it's your turn to rewrite the rules of engagement. The quietude that resonates more profoundly than 1,000 desperate messages holds an immense, often underestimated power. Have you ever experienced that frustrating sensation where the more you tried to articulate your feelings, the less you felt truly heard or understood by him? Let me share a crucial insight. Silence, in this context, is not an admission of defeat or a sign of emptiness. It is a deliberate, strategic maneuver, a powerful statement in itself. When he decided to walk away, your initial instinct was likely to do what most people do in such situations, to chase after him, to desperately seek explanations, to plead for one more chance to make things right. However, all that emotional noise, all those frantic attempts to bridge the gap, only served to solidify his decision to leave, reinforcing his resolve. Why does this happen, you ask? It happens because such actions transmit a powerful signal of desperation, a palpable sense of neediness that can be overwhelming. And desperation, my friend, is arguably the most off-putting scent you can wear, a perfume that repels rather than attracts, pushing him further away instead of drawing him closer. Now, consider this carefully. When you consciously choose to embrace silence, you don't simply vanish into thin air or become insignificant. Instead, you create an undeniable impact, a void that speaks volumes. This emotional silence acts like cutting off the fuel supply to a fire that was only consuming your precious energy, your time, and your emotional well-being, leaving you drained and depleted. When the other person, in this case, him, has grown accustomed to your constant presence, your readily available attention, and your predictable reactions, the sudden void created by your silence weighs far more heavily than any verbal complaint or emotional outburst ever could. It is precisely in this unexpected emptiness, this stark contrast to the previous dynamic, that he begins to truly wonder, to question his own assumptions and perceptions. Why isn't she insisting anymore? He might ponder, a seed of doubt planted in his mind. Could it be that she no longer needs me? That my absence isn't affecting her, as I presumed? He might further question, his certainty wavering. Is it possible that there's someone new in her life, someone who has captured her attention? The dynamic is comparable to walking down a bustling, noisy street every single day. A street filled with familiar sounds and activities, and then suddenly, one day, finding everything eerily quiet, unexpectedly still. You would inevitably pause, wouldn't you? You'd notice the change, feel the shift, and wonder what happened. Because something significant, something you had taken for granted, is now noticeably missing. This is precisely how intelligent detachment operates. It's not about mere absence, for the sake of being aloof, but about creating a powerful, undeniable contrast that forces introspection and revaluation on his part. The ancient philosopher Epictetus offered timeless wisdom when he said, "First learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak." In this specific scenario, the wisdom translates to, First, understand the profound message your absence communicates, and then allow him the space to interpret it on his own, without your interference. Because when you refrain from offering explanations, when you resist the urge to justify your silence or your distance, he inevitably begins to construct his own narratives, his own reasons, his own theories to fill the void you've created. This isn't some esoteric secret known only to a select few women who have achieved emotional mastery. It's a fundamental aspect of human psychology. Do you understand what transpires when a woman who was always quick to respond, who replied to messages within seconds, suddenly and inexplicably goes silent, seemingly disappearing from his digital and emotional radar? Her unexpected absence carves out a significant void, a palpable emptiness in the space she once occupied in his life, and human nature, as we know, abhors a vacuum. It instinctively seeks to fill any perceived emptiness. That man who previously took your presence for granted, who perhaps even ignored your attempts at communication, now starts to notice, acutely, that something fundamental has shifted, that the familiar pattern has been disrupted. You are no longer readily available to validate his ego, to constantly remind him of how special or important he is, or to be the reliable source of attention he had grown accustomed to receiving from you. Instead, you begin to transform into a recurring thought in his mind, a persistent question mark that hovers over his day, an unanswered query that piques his curiosity and, perhaps, a touch of unease. This shift is subtle yet profound, marking the beginning of his internal revaluation of your significance. I recall a story about Sarah, a 32-year-old graphic designer, who found herself completely blocked on all social media platforms by her then partner, Mark, a 35-year-old architect. After a heated argument in early 2023, what did Sarah do in response to this digital exile? Absolutely nothing. Literally nothing at all. She didn't engage in retaliatory blocking. She didn't resort to public displays of distress or air her grievances online. Nor did she attempt to send conciliatory gifts or lengthy apologies through other channels. Instead, she redirected her focus inward, channeling her energy into enhancing her physical well-being through a new fitness regimen, strengthening her financial independence by taking on freelance projects, and nurturing her mental and emotional resilience through mindfulness practices and reconnecting with old hobbies she had neglected. Approximately 2 months later, around springtime, Mark suddenly reappeared, materializing with a rather flimsy and almost laughable excuse. "I had a dream about you the other night." This was no mere coincidence, no random occurrence dictated by fate or chance. It was the undeniable power of a meticulously executed silence, a silence that spoke louder than any words could have. Because silence doesn't just communicate a message of detachment, it also serves as a fertile ground for personal construction and growth. While Sarah was maintaining her outward silence towards Mark, she was simultaneously and diligently rebuilding her self-esteem from the ground up, rediscovering aspects of her personality and passions that she had inadvertently suppressed or forgotten while prioritizing his needs and desires in the relationship. This profound internal process of rediscovery and strengthening inevitably reflects externally, manifesting in subtle yet noticeable changes. Her energy shifts, becoming more vibrant and self-assured. Her posture improves, conveying a newfound confidence. Even her gaze changes, reflecting an inner peace and resolve that wasn't there before. And these transformations, my friend, are things that he perceives. Even if he's not physically close to her, even if they are not in direct contact. Silence, in this powerful form, is not a state of passivity or weakness. It is, in fact, power. Accumulated, a reservoir of emotional strength, being built day by day. It's an emotional time bomb, patiently ticking, waiting for the right moment to reveal its full impact, starting today. Make a conscious effort to eliminate that impulsive urge to write to him, to reach out with a casual good morning, a funny meme you saw, or even a veiled, indirect message on social media that you hope he'll see. Make yourself emotionally inaccessible. Create a deliberate distance that he can feel. If necessary, delete his contact information from your phone, not as an act of trying to forget him, because that often backfires, but as a powerful reminder to yourself that your precious energy is not something to be given away freely or taken for granted by anyone. And while you are implementing this emotional boundary, focus on your personal improvement, on becoming a better version of yourself each day. Every single day spent in this constructive silence should equate to 10 days of evolution in your personal journey. Think about that profound potential for growth. Consider this: every time you text him, every time you try to explain your feelings, every time you plead for his attention or understanding, you are sending a crystal clear, unambiguous message. I need you so desperately that I feel like I cannot live my life without you. And that message, far from drawing him closer or reigniting his interest, actually pushes him further away, reinforcing his perception of your neediness. This is because, fundamentally, we all desire what requires effort to obtain, what feels like a valuable acquisition, not what is readily served to us on a silver platter, available without any investment or challenge. Strategic silence is akin to an emotional diet for the soul. Initially, it's challenging. It might even feel painful or desperate as you fight old habits. But with consistent practice and time, it makes you stronger, more centered, and infinitely more powerful, radiating an entirely new energy that doesn't go unnoticed. It's as if you begin to emanate a completely different frequency, one that silently but clearly proclaims, I am whole and complete all by myself. When you genuinely detach, he often gravitates back. This isn't a coincidence, it's a psychological response. Has it ever occurred to you that just when you finally manage to disconnect emotionally, to truly let go and shift your focus elsewhere, that very person suddenly reappears, seemingly out of the blue, as if summoned by your newfound indifference? This is a critical juncture where many falter, misinterpreting the act of distancing oneself as mere indifference or playing hard to get, when in reality, it's a potent form of influence, a subtle shift in the energetic dynamics of the relationship. When you consciously cut off the consistent stream of attention you were previously providing, something significant ignites within the masculine psyche, a sort of internal alarm bell. You cease to be a predictable constant in his life, a readily available source of validation, and instead, you transform into an intriguing enigma, a puzzle he feels compelled to solve. And the human brain, my friend, has a deep-seated aversion to unresolved issues, to voids and unanswered questions. It craves closure and understanding. The consistent attention you once gave him created a habit, a familiar pattern in his daily life. And when you abruptly break that habit, when that attention is suddenly withdrawn, he experiences a distinct sense of loss, even if he can't fully articulate what it is that he's missing or why it's affecting him. This phenomenon is real reverse psychology in action, not the manipulative kind born from scheming, but the authentic kind that arises from a genuine shift in your focus and energy. It's not about intentionally trying to trick him or play games. It's about demonstrating through your actions, not just your words, that you are no longer available on his terms, that you have fundamentally changed the dynamic of your interaction by reclaiming your power and redirecting your energy inward. You don't ignore him out of spite or wounded pride, because that would still keep you energetically tethered to him. Rather, you do it from a place of profound wisdom and self-respect, understanding your own worth, because someone who doesn't value your presence when you are readily available must inevitably feel the weight of your absence. And this realization should dawn on them without any prior warning or dramatic announcement from your side. It's much like abruptly removing sugar from the coffee of someone who has consumed it sweetened their entire life. At first, they might not consciously register what specific ingredient is missing, but they will undoubtedly notice the difference in taste, the unfamiliar bitterness, and even if they don't articulate it immediately, they will miss that familiar sweetness, that accustomed comfort. The flavor profile has undeniably changed, and this alteration creates an internal tension, a subtle discomfort. This very tension, this stark contrast between what was the familiar comfort of your attention and what is now the unsettling quiet of your absence, activates something primal within the human mind, particularly noticeable in the context of relational dynamics. The instinct of pursuit. When something or someone we value begins to move away, to become distant or less accessible, our initial reflexive impulse is to follow, to try and regain what we perceive is slipping away. This isn't necessarily because we are inherently weak or insecure, but because we are fundamentally human, wired with these ancient response patterns. And this deep-seated response is often even more pronounced in men, who, from an evolutionary psychology perspective, have been historically conditioned or programmed to pursue what seems to be retreating, to conquer what appears elusive or unattainable, as this taps into a primal drive for achievement and validation. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wisely stated, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy," a profound piece of advice that holds significant meaning in this context. What does this imply for your situation? It means you are not going to stoop to the level of begging, pleading, or desperately seeking validation, as unfortunately many tend to do when faced with rejection or emotional distance. You will not respond to his withdrawal with drama, emotional outbursts, or manipulative tactics. Instead, you will respond with unwavering focus on your own growth, with the quiet emergence of a new, empowered version of yourself. You choose not to be reactive to his actions or inactions, but to be strategic in your own self-development, cultivating an inner calm and strength that, by its very nature, disconcerts anyone who expected you to crumble or chase. This composed and self-assured demeanor, my friend, is incredibly powerful and disarming. Reverse psychology, when applied authentically and not as a mere tactic, functions effectively because it fundamentally alters the intricate dance of power within the relationship. Take a moment to consider this. When someone is actively pursuing you, showering you with attention and seeking your approval, you inherently hold the control, the upper hand in the dynamic. You have the autonomy to decide whether or not to respond, whether or not to reciprocate their attention, and how much of your time and energy you are willing to invest. However, when that person, who was once so readily available and attentive, suddenly disappears from your radar, when they withdraw their energy and focus, the control subtly but surely changes hands. All of a sudden, it is you who finds yourself wondering, analyzing their silence, replaying past interactions, and trying to decipher the meaning behind their absence. This significant shift in energy, this reversal of roles, is precisely what often provokes their renewed approach or interest. I know of a young woman, let's call her Chloe, a 28-year-old writer, who used to spend countless nights pouring her sorrow into heartfelt poems, crafting thinly veiled posts on social media, and curating playlists of songs dedicated to her ex-partner, Michael, a 30-year-old musician, after their breakup in the summer of 2022. This went on for weeks, a cycle of public grieving and indirect appeals, until one day, abruptly, there was nothing but complete silence, a total cessation of her emotional broadcasts. Chloe started dedicating her mornings to intense workouts at the local gym. She immersed herself in launching a small online vintage bookstore she had always dreamed of, and effectively vanished from the emotional map he had become accustomed to navigating. He, Michael, who had already started seeing someone new, a woman named Olivia, suddenly reappeared in Chloe's inbox just 2 weeks after her silence began, with a seemingly innocuous message, "Hey, just checking in, are you doing okay?" That message, though brief and ostensibly casual, revealed something much deeper, something profound about his internal state, a distinct discomfort and perhaps even anxiety in the face of her unexpected change, her sudden unavailability. Because when you genuinely transform yourself, when you consciously alter your energetic frequency, when you stop being perpetually available and instead prioritize your own well-being and growth, you create an undeniable disequilibrium in the dynamic that existed before, and human beings, by their very nature, instinctively seek to restore balance to what they perceive as unstable or unpredictable. That which cannot be easily controlled or understood often becomes a source of preoccupation, almost an obsession. Therefore, it is crucial to apply the principle of no contact with unwavering commitment and authenticity, truly. No looking at his social media profiles, no asking mutual friends about him, no over-analyzing his past stories or online activity. Instead, dedicate yourself to living your own life, to reinventing your days and filling them with activities that nourish your soul and contribute to your personal evolution. Make every single moment spent without him a deliberate step towards growth, towards becoming a more complete and self-assured version of yourself. Your intentional distance is not a display of cold indifference or a petty game. It is a strategic repositioning of yourself, a conscious reclaiming of your energetic and emotional space. And this repositioning is not merely an external act of creating physical distance. It is, more importantly, a profound internal shift, a reordering of your thoughts, your priorities, and your core values. You are no longer the person who anxiously waits by the phone for a message that may never come. You are now the architect of your own path, the creator of your own happiness and fulfillment, independent of his validation or presence. This cultivated emotional independence, this ability to find contentment and strength within yourself, is deeply and undeniably attractive, radiating a quiet confidence that draws others in. So, cease the futile effort of insisting on being remembered, of trying to force your presence into his awareness through desperate measures. Instead, focus on becoming so authentically and vibrantly yourself that you become impossible to forget, a distinct and memorable individual in your own right. Because the woman who successfully changes her energy, who reclaims her power and redefines her boundaries, is the one who ultimately changes the entire game, shifting the dynamics in her favor. And you, my dear, are not here to be a mere option in someone else's life, a placeholder until something better comes along. You are here to become the woman who no longer needs to beg for a place, because she is now the one who is chosen, sought after, and valued for who she truly is. The impact of emotional scarcity is a well-documented psychological principle. What is rare, what is not easily attainable, is inherently desired more intensely. This is because the things we perceive as just out of reach, the things we cannot readily have, often become the objects of our deepest obsession and longing. There's an undeniable law of value that consistently proves true in human interaction and economics. Alike, abundance tends to diminish perceived worth. This principle applies to material possessions like money, to the intangible yet precious commodity of time, and, perhaps most profoundly, to people and the attention they give. When you were consistently present, always available at his beck and call, constantly writing, inquiring about his day, and offering your unwavering support, he likely grew accustomed to your presence, to your emotional availability. And anything that becomes a predictable routine, a constant in our lives, unfortunately, often gets taken for granted. Its true value overlooked until it's no longer there. If you're finding value in this approach, and this message is striking a chord within you, consider subscribing to the channel, and be sure to activate notifications. This way, you won't miss out on any future content designed to further empower you on your journey. If you're experiencing a growing sense of inner disquiet, a compelling urge to break free from outdated societal expectations and to construct a life that is guided by your own authentic truth, please know that this quest you're on is not futile or misguided. It is the voice of your authentic self, preparing you for the profound freedom and genuine fulfillment that are waiting for you to claim them. There exist powerful principles and time-tested practices that can brilliantly illuminate this path towards autonomy and self-affirmation, empowering you to live with an unshakable clarity and a deep, abiding peace. In the pinned comment below, we have made available a collection of resources that were thoughtfully and carefully crafted for souls just like yours. Souls who are ready to embark on their most powerful personal revolution and live their truth. Think about it for a moment. When something is plentiful and easily accessible, we often tend to devalue it or simply fail to appreciate its true worth. Do you consciously value the air you breathe every second of every day? Probably not, because it's always there, a constant, seemingly infinite resource. However, if you've ever found yourself in a situation where you were momentarily deprived of air, even for a few fleeting seconds, struggling to catch your breath, you would instantly understand the profound and vital value of oxygen. The same fundamental principle applies to your emotional presence and availability in a relationship. When it is constant, unwavering, and predictable, it can unfortunately become almost invisible, blending into the background of his life. But when you deliberately and consciously cut off that consistent flow of emotional energy, something significant shifts within his perception. Your newfound emotional scarcity begins to activate a series of questions and comparisons in his mind. A cognitive dissonance that he needs to resolve. Why isn't she around anymore, like she used to be? He might wonder, noticing the absence of your usual interactions. What could have possibly happened to cause this change? He may ask himself, searching for an explanation. Is it conceivable that she no longer cares for me, that her feelings have waned? This internal whirlwind of questions, this sudden uncertainty you've introduced, my friend, is infinitely more potent and thought-provoking than any romantic poem you could write or any desperate message you could send. This is because you are no longer a predictable certainty in his life. You have transformed into an intriguing mystery, a puzzle he feels an urge to solve. It's akin to consistently watering a vibrant green plant that always seemed healthy and thriving. You might not pay it much specific attention, because it's always just there. But if you suddenly stop watering it, and it begins to show signs of wilting, its leaves drooping and its color fading, only then does one often realize the crucial role their care played and the value of what they had. Similarly, imagine a household where fresh bread is always abundantly available on the table. Its presence is so customary that no one particularly acknowledges or values it. However, if that bread suddenly disappears one day, if the breadbasket remains empty, then all of a sudden, everyone starts looking for it, craving its familiar comfort. This isn't merely a clever strategy for relationships. It's a universal law, the fundamental law of scarcity, which dictates that limited availability increases perceived value. Economists are intimately familiar with this principle. Psychologists have confirmed its effects through numerous studies, and truly wise women throughout history have intuitively understood and applied it in their interactions. When any resource, tangible or intangible, becomes scarce, its perceived value increases exponentially, often far beyond its intrinsic worth. And your attention, your energy, your affection, and your love are no exceptions to this powerful rule. They are precious resources. The Roman philosopher Seneca articulated this timeless truth perfectly when he stated, "We do not value what we have until we lose it." However, the truly stoic individual, the woman grounded in her own worth, doesn't act with the primary intention of being valued by others. She acts to maintain her own inner center, her equilibrium, and her integrity. She doesn't actively seek external recognition or validation, but her very presence is noticeable, and consequently, her absence resonates profoundly, creating a palpable void. This powerful principle of scarcity extends far beyond the realm of romantic relationships. It applies to virtually every form of human interaction and social dynamic. Have you ever observed how the individuals who are most in demand, those whose schedules are packed, whose time is limited, and who are, in essence, scarce, are also often the ones who command the most respect and admiration from others? This is not a mere coincidence or an accident of circumstance. Their perceived inaccessibility, their limited availability, inherently increases their perceived value in the eyes of others, making their attention and time seem more precious and sought after. This dynamic plays out in professional settings, in social circles, and even within family structures, subtly influencing how we perceive and interact with one another based on availability. Consider the case of Amelia, a 35-year-old marketing executive, who used to be available 24/7 for her partner, Daniel, a 38-year-old software developer. She would answer his calls and texts immediately, rearrange her schedule to fit his, and always prioritize his needs, often at the expense of her own well-being. Around their anniversary in 2021, Daniel, comfortable in this dynamic, rarely reciprocated this level of attentiveness, and often took her efforts for granted. One day, after a particularly disappointing experience, Amelia reached her breaking point and simply disappeared from his immediate orbit. She didn't block him, nor did she post passive-aggressive messages online. She just became genuinely unavailable, focusing on a demanding new project at work, reigniting old friendships, and pursuing a passion for pottery she had long neglected. The result? Daniel reappeared a few weeks later, confused, distinctly uncomfortable, and searching for any plausible excuse to reconnect. But by then, it was too late. Amelia was no longer emotionally invested, and this detachment was far more impactful and, in a way, more cruel and effective than any verbal confrontation or plea could ever have been. Do you recognize the recurring pattern in these stories, the underlying psychological mechanism at play? Abundant availability often breeds complacency and a lack of appreciation in the recipient. Conversely, scarcity, whether real or perceived, ignites a sense of urgency, a desire to obtain what is no longer easily accessible. When you were perpetually available, always there at his beck and call, he could afford the luxury of not fully valuing your presence, of taking you for granted because you were a constant. However, when you intentionally withdraw, when you make yourself scarce, his mind inevitably starts working overtime, processing the change. You are no longer a guaranteed resource in his life, readily available whenever he chooses. Instead, you become a lost possibility, a potential regret, and that realization, my friend, generates a unique kind of anxiety, a discomfort that no amount of pleading or supplication on your part could ever create. So, today, make a conscious decision to limit your availability, to reclaim your time and energy as your own. You don't have to respond to messages or calls instantaneously. You are not obligated to be constantly accessible. It's perfectly acceptable, and indeed healthy, to not always be on call for others. Make yourself a priority, but not by playing manipulative games or by being artificially difficult. Instead, become genuinely busy and engrossed in building something larger and more meaningful for yourself, your career, your passions, your personal growth. If he desires to know what you're up to, let him make the effort to discover the new, evolved version of you, the woman who is no longer waiting in the wings. This isn't about adopting a strategy of making yourself artificially hard to get or engaging in emotionally draining mind games that lack authentic substance. It's about genuinely and wholeheartedly occupying your time and channeling your precious energy into yourself, into your own personal growth, into achieving your goals, and into cultivating your own happiness. When you truly and authentically focus on your own evolution, on becoming the best version of yourself, emotional scarcity becomes a natural byproduct, not a contrived tactic. You simply won't have the time or the inclination to beg for someone else's attention because you will be far too engrossed and fulfilled by the process of building your own inner empire, your own rich and satisfying life. Being emotionally scarce is not about cultivating coldness, detachment in a negative sense, or emotional unavailability that pushes everyone away. Rather, it is an expression of profound wisdom, of understanding your own value and the dynamics of human connection. While many others might be caught in the cycle of chasing after fleeting attention or external validation, you will be walking firmly and confidently towards your own center, towards your own source of strength and contentment. And that distinction, my friend, not only gets noticed by others, it becomes incredibly desirable, magnetic even. So, stop freely giving away your precious energy as if it were an unlimited resource. Make yourself so intrinsically valuable, so captivating in your own right, that he cannot ignore you, even if he consciously tries to. The journey of personal rebirth stands as the most potent weapon of attraction, a transformative process that commands attention. He doesn't return for the same woman he left behind. He returns, if at all, intrigued and captivated by the new, evolved version of her. Are you passively waiting for him to come back, hoping that time alone will somehow mend what was broken? Or are you actively engaged in constructing a version of yourself so compelling, so radiant, that even he wouldn't be able to resist looking back, perhaps even attempting to leave her? Most individuals desire to reclaim someone they've lost without undertaking any significant internal or external changes themselves, as if mere waiting and wishing were sufficient to alter the past outcome. But let me share a rather blunt truth with you, my friend. No one genuinely returns to the exact same situation they chose to leave if everything remains unchanged. Why would they, logically speaking? If he departed once, it was because something essential was missing for him, something significant had fractured in the connection, or he had ceased to admire or value something fundamental about the dynamic or about you at that time. The real power, the enduring strength, has always resided within you. If you've journeyed this far, it signifies that a part of you has grown weary of pleading for affection, tired of seeking external validation. Today, you've come to understand that this isn't about manipulative tactics or passively waiting for his return. It's about ceasing to revolve your life around someone who is no longer present and starting to orbit around your own evolution, your own well-being. Silence, scarcity, and detachment aren't punishments. They are transformative strategies. Courageous decisions that elevate you from the role of a victim and place you firmly in command of your own narrative. The deepest pain of a separation often isn't just the loss of the other person, but the disconcerting loss of oneself in the process. And today, you are reclaiming that lost self, piece by piece. This is a profound reconnection with your core, with your inherent power. As you cease to orbit another and begin to turn on your own axis, something truly remarkable happens. You naturally attract what resonates with your authentic frequency. This path isn't the easiest. It can be solitary, uncomfortable, and filled with moments of doubt. Yet, it is the most empowering journey because it not only restores your emotional equilibrium, but also fortifies you for life, for all future relationships, and for any challenge that comes your way. The nights of tears, the mornings of anxiety, the days clouded by uncertainty, all these are integral parts of your transformative process. Do not fear the pain. Fear remaining stagnant within it. Share this video with that friend, sister, or a colleague who is currently navigating a difficult breakup and truly needs to hear this message of empowerment. Like this video, leave a comment sharing your own insights or experiences, and subscribe to this channel. Don't do it out of mere impulse, but as a conscious choice. Because when something deeply touches your soul, the least we can do is allow it to continue resonating within us and to ripple out through us, inspiring others.